Hello, what's going on? I wanted to do a real quick and dirty video regarding grading exclusively One Piece cards with the PSA. That's the only real experience that I have. I haven't used any of the other grading services. I have graded other cards, but this is just going to be covering the One Piece because One Piece is what I went into the heaviest when I started grading. And if you do want to get started right now, you're probably looking at pretty close to $700 for your first order because the return shipping fee for the first 20 cards, it'll probably kick that number up to 420, 430 for the first batch, and then the subscription after tax is going to be like 158. And as far as is it viable to grade One Piece cards, yes it is, right? This Boa Hancock I sold for $11 profit total after accounting for platform fees because I sold it on eBay, shipping and materials, and the grading fees that I paid. I did end up clearing $11 profit on her, and she was actually a bulk card. I pulled her out of a bulk box. She looked like she was in really good shape. Boa Hancock is a popular character. She's from the original Romance Dawn, and you can tell because she has the pin mark, so she's not one of the reprints from PRB. And these are the little things with One Piece that you want to start to get to yourself familiar with. Is like the pin mark is exclusive to, I believe, OPO 1 to OPO 5, and then they moved away from it. But if there's any reprint of any of those cards that had the original pin mark, that pin mark will then be gone. So there is a way for you to keep track of the earlier releases of cards. So since she was an original release, she was in really good shape. I pulled her from bulk, so I paid like a penny and a half for her. I ended up turning that bulk card into an $11 card profit, right? So it is viable, even for the lower end cards. There are collectors. These characters are popular. Once you familiarize yourself with the game and the IP, you can start to gauge what is and is not good to send out for grading. Now, if we talk about sourcing cards, I live in a rural area and I'm fairly introverted, so I don't get out too much. So sourcing for me is eBay and TCG Player for the most part. Um, but the where you source them isn't as important because for anybody out there, you can go to an LGS that sells singles. You can have a buddy that you can trade with. If you have a subscription, maybe you can offer to grade some of your friends' cards if they hook you up with some freebies, whatever. So there's a lot of places that you can source the cards. Sourcing the cards isn't as important as knowing One Piece when it comes to grading. And I've been doing it for almost a year, and I have learned a few things in that time. Like when you look at these examples, this Perona on the left is from OP12. She's the alt art that just came out. And if you jump on TCG Player right now or eBay, you're going to be looking at anywhere from $30 to $50. TCG Player, you're paying $40 for a raw copy. Now, this is the thing that you do have to become aware of is with One Piece, the meta heavily dictates a lot of these cards. Now, Perona is a fairly popular character. She's one of my favorites. Her art does tend to be eye-catching and unique. But this alt art card that's $40, it has nothing to do with collectability. It's actually fairly rare for these alt art cards to get this high, unless it is a very popular character like maybe Nami, some of the boas, but even the boas and the other Peronas, their alt arts usually don't get this high unless a certain period of time has passed or it's a special unpullable card. But this is a pullable card from OP12. She's that high because she's meta. So when it comes exclusively for looking for cards to grade, a meta relevant card like this that's inflated, this is not the kind of thing that I look at. And when you don't have a whole bunch of money, buying one or two of her to hope you get lucky that it's in good enough condition to get a 10, even if it did get a 10, in my experience, a lot of these alt art cards usually don't sell for more than 65, maybe $85. If you take a Boa Hancock from OPO7 right now, I think she's bounced all the way back up to like $25. But you're still probably only, I've actually sold the alt art from OPO7 and I sold two of them for $75. I think I gave one guy a deal because he was buying multiples, so I might have knocked it down to 65 for him. But so I do not see a world where right now this Perona sells for more than $75 at a PSA 10. And more than likely, what's going to happen is the meta is going to continue to shift, and her price will actually be down, maybe even half of what it is right now, just by the time you get the card back from PSA. So if you pay that $40, even if you get lucky and you find one for $30, paying the grading fee, which usually is about $20 after you factor in your sub and the shipping and everything, it's around $21 to get one of these cards graded right now with PSA. So you're looking at your $50, $60 investment. You're not going to be able to move her. And when she does dip back down, because it will happen, and you can hold me to it if you come back here and leave a comment in like 6 months or so, she is going to dip back down. She'll probably be $25. Even if she does stay meta relevant, I don't foresee her holding this price for very long. It is possible, but I doubt it. And I actually had an experience with that when I got a Yamato card, I believe from Kingdoms of Intrigue. It was OPO4 Yamato alt art. At the time, her raw card was somewhere in the ballpark of $75. And I think it was because people were speculating. It didn't have anything to do with actual meta. It was speculation on future meta, I believe, is what drove that card up. I sent her off to get graded when she was $75 raw. By the time she got back to me, she was down to 30, I think 25, and I ended up selling her for 70. So if I would have sold her at raw for like $65 at the time, I would have actually ended up making more money because I would have bypassed the grading fees. And that's why you want to be careful with any of the meta relevant cards or any of the speculation that's going on and being able to identify that. So if you compared these three different Peronas for which ones you may want to get graded, the Judge Perona from OPO1, she has the benefit of being an older card. She's come way down because Doflamingo's not meta relevant leader anymore. So she's down to, you can find her for $3-4. And she's an old card from 2022, and she's got the Judge stamp. So buying 10 copies of this card versus one copy of the Altar Perona, it's just smarter. You're going to end up with more copies of actual gradable cards, because when you are fishing, especially online, near mint does not mean that you're getting a PSA 10 when you buy from a shop. Near mint, as far as PSA is concerned, is an 8. So the people that are selling you near mint cards on TCG and eBay, they're not, I would assume that the vast majority of them aren't trying to screw people. Cards that do have minor defects technically are near mint. So they're not trying to screw you. And if you buy more copies of a card when you're fishing, especially fishing online, you have a better chance of getting those cards that you're comfortable with, sending for that 10. And if you got 10 copies of this girl, you should end up with a few that you're comfortable sending to grade. And yes, this Judge Perona is a card that I would totally send off. I pay the $20, $21, whatever, the $4, so I'm in $25. If I can sell her for $50, $60, which is possible with a Judge card that's this old, it is very possible. So yes, I'm comfortable with her. This Perona is a release event for Perona from OP10, and I actually secured 2 copies of her early on for, I think I paid around $3, $3.50. And I got those 2 copies graded because they look good. And I sold them both fast. They just got back. I just listed them. Both copies are gone. I sold them for $45 each. I ended up clearing a total of $31 profit, accounting for grading fees, platform fees, shipping, materials, all that stuff. I ended up clearing, the good $31 profit on these 2 release event Peronas. I wouldn't feel as comfortable paying $10 for her because there's a few copies of her left on TCG Player that are sitting around that $5-6 mark, but they're from smaller sellers. It's not going to be long before this Perona reaches $10. And I wouldn't be extremely comfortable buying her for $10 because at the end of the day, she is still just a release event Perona. And unless you're planning on sitting on her for a long period of time where the supply continues to dry up, then she may be worth 75, 85, maybe even $100 a year, 2 years down the road. But now you're looking at that long term investment. And I try to stay away from the long term investments. 3 to 4 months is enough of an investment. And the other thing that you have to remember is that some of these cards do take a long time to move, even if you do have them listed in your inventory. Even if you are an established seller that people can trust, some of these cards still are going to sit, and you'll start to get a feel for it. There's cards that I sent off in my first batch that I've had back since I think March, and they still haven't sold some of them. So it does take a while for some of these cards to move, and you don't want to put yourself in a position to where you can't even list a card because you're in a bit more than what you wanted to be in order to make that money back. So that's one of the things to keep in mind also. But yeah, sourcing the One Piece cards, knowing the meta, knowing why raw cards are what they are as far as cost, that's very important, because if you start grading a bunch of meta relevant cards and paying high dollar raw prices, you'll come to find out that the 3 months it takes for PSA to get those cards back to you, they've already halved in raw price, right? So here's my stats so far, just concerning One Piece. I didn't account for my Pokemon or Final Fantasy or Magic or any of the other grading that I've done. But you're looking at about 77 total One Piece cards that I've sent to PSA. And I've gotten 66 10s, 10 9s, and one really juicy 8, which was a release event Bello Betty. And I don't know why they gave her an 8. I can't figure it out. I wouldn't have sent it to them if she was an 8. But I'm okay with that. Bello Betty is I'm a fan of Bello Betty. So I'm okay with keeping her in my personal collection. There's no sense in me trying to sell a One Piece 8. They grade so well that it's impressive I got an 8. It really is. So she's going to stay in the personal collection. Some of the, I believe all the 9s I've already sold. And I have 25 left, either listed or not listed. I have about 25 One Piece cards left. So when you look at the total grading fees, and I overestimated on this, so it could be anywhere from this to maybe $50 less. I overestimated because of accounting for subscriptions and all that. Because right now, if you look at 76 cards and I paid $158 for the subscription, you split that $158 across the 76 cards. But that's not entirely true, because I did get other cards graded, and I also had the benefit of getting the PSA promos of Boa and Shanks, which also were free, so that was nice. But even overestimating, I figure $1,400 is fair as far as grading fees total for One Piece. My raw costs, a lot of these cards that I sent to get graded, in all honesty, a lot of them are sub-dollar cards. Or quite a few of them did just come from bulk, like, to be honest. So the raw fees are somewhere in the ballpark of $280. But when it comes to like the illustration box promos from volume 1 and 2, I just accounted for $20. I counted that into the raw fee for the cards. So about $10 each card, which isn't entirely accurate, considering I also got those boosters in the box. And I did actually get hits from the boosters. I got a Marco hit out of one of the illustration boxes that sold the other day for 75 out of 10. So that also came from an illustration booster. But this is more or less where my raw for the cards, the 76 cards that actually went out, this is more or less the raw cost of them. So I am actually in the green. The 51, I believe it's 51, 52 cards that have sold, this is what I've netted. So I am in the green on the existing cards, and I still have the existing inventory. So I'm doing fairly well, I would say. One Piece cards do grade well. They don't command as much of a price because they grade so well, but you can still turn a little bit of a profit and grow your collection at the same time. So everything is for sale, but not everything sells, and everything that doesn't sell is my collection. So that's the way that I look at it and rationalize it, and I've been pretty happy with the returns so far. All right. If you have any questions, concerns, or complaints, leave them down in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys later.